Ми розпочинаємо нашу зустріч.
We're starting our meeting with Tomek Popakul. I would like to say a couple of words about Tomek. In my opinion, and not just in my opinion, Tomek is now one of the best directors in Europe. His Acid Rain became very popular in 2019. He got a Grand Prix in Zagreb, in Stuttgart, lots of other awards, and that's a very cool film, and today we're going to talk about it. But I would like to talk more about lesser known films by Tomek, like his student film called The North, or about a project that he was doing in Japan when he was in residence in Tokyo. That's film Black. I think that Tomek is going to tell us lots of interesting stuff about that. Do you have a presentation, or am I just going to ask you questions and you would be answering? How would it work? How is going to be better for you?
The better for me will be when you ask me questions, because I didn't got any specific topic requests, and I'm not terribly sure what your audience is interested in. So I can show you and tell you everything I know about my own movies.
Розкажи, які були в тебе, може...
Could you tell me the first impressions from art, maybe from animation, not just animation, but in your childhood? What did you watch in Poland in those times? What was popular among young people? What kind of films, animation, maybe graphic arts, comic books?
Actually, I always say the same thing as such strongest first impact of animation. It was like pirate VHS that my mother got from I don't know where, but it was a movie called Gandahar by René Laloux, and I watched it as a very, very small child, and I remember I was very, very impacted by that, but I couldn't understand it because I was too small, but those images were stuck in my mind. And a few years ago I found this movie, and I actually found the title and the director and so on, and I rewatched it, and all these images, they just hit me twice harder because now I'm older, and also I understand the story, and I still feel it's very, very good movie and one of my favorites. So I would say it's Gandahar by René Laloux, and maybe as a kid I liked much this Batman animated series that were very noir and art deco and very geometrical, simplified. Batman, the animated series, I liked it as a kid a lot, and I think the style is still it's visual style for adults. It was quite dark, and I liked it. Yeah.
І після школи...
And after school, you went to study to become an animator, not immediately. First you studied to become an artist, a graphic artist, right?
I don't know, my education was like that I was in kind of art middle school, so it was I don't know, or it was like high school, but with art profile, so we didn't have much push on, mathematics or physics, and we had painting, this so-called workshop graphic with all these lino cuts and stuff, and also sculpture. So it was such traditional art-oriented high school, but also we had some classes from computer graphics, and it's actually as a final work in this school I did my second animation ever. Like I did like 18 minutes long 3D movie that looks like crap, and I wouldn't want to show it here, but yeah, it was quite long. I remember such moment when I first discovered that I planned the movie to be bigger and longer than it's actually possible for human to catch the deadline of the exams, and I made my first sheet in Excel, and I counted like, it looks like I will need to make 10 shots per day to be, on time to finish this movie. So I was like totally overwhelmed and in panic. So it's my first experience with this panic that actually at the beginning of making every movie you have this feeling that it's not possible, I will never make it, it's too much work, but then you just go step by step. Yeah, and so going back to question, after this art high school I went to film school in Łódź, and to the animation department. And then I did the whole 5 years with my diploma movie in Zygenord. And at last year I studied for 1 year script writing. I thought I will be able to do parallelly both directions, but it appeared to be too hard to make Zygenord and study script writing at the same time. But from this 1 year of studying script writing, I feel I learned very, very much.
Розкажи, будь ласка, про цей фільм «Зігенорд».
Could you tell about Zygenort? So that's a city that really exists? You were born there, or did you live there? I mean, how is this film associated with your life, with documentaries? Are there any documentary parts there? Is the city recognizable from the images?
Yes, it's referring to very specific village where I was born, and I was born in small village by Szczecin or Stettin Lagoon on the just by the German border. It takes like 1 hour by bike to get to the border with Germany, and this part of Poland are so called, I don't know, ziemie odzyskane, like shortly just like part taken from Germany and given to Poland. So I was born in and raised in German house, and we have German trees in the garden, and some porcelain, some like objects are left. And I remember when I was now this village it's called very Polish Trzebież, and in the past, it was before war, it was called Zygenord. And I remember this shock when I was a school kid, and I discovered that actually my village had different name, and it's kind of like this German language is about this like ghosts from the past, but also it's very, very loose reference to, I don't know, Nazi ideology about hierarchy of beings, and like that who you are is very connected with your body, with your race, or how you were born, and you don't have much to do about it, and you just need to accept your place in this like hierarchy of beings. So it's like I had also discovery that in this like national symbol of Poland is white eagle, and German is like black eagle. So for me it's like yin and yang or whatever. But at the same time I felt they are always like what nations want to identify with is like eagles, the predators, the strong ones, and nobody wants to be a fish because fish are fish are born to be eaten and they don't have feelings and nobody cares about them. And and my father is a fisherman, so like many scenes I recorded with him, and I visited his port. We got to the boat with my sound designer that recorded the engine. I asked my father to cut fish so I can record it and so on. And I remember this scene from childhood. This is a recreation of my memory of this. Like maybe I will show it.
Yeah.
Is it possible to make it like visible? Yeah, so actually like many okay, so this is basically my yard, this is my garage, this is our old car, something so like I have such small cousin, and he recognized this fisherman that this is my father, and it's his favorite uncle, and he asks his mother to play him a cartoon about Uncle Krzysiek, like my father. So this small kid who recognized the places and characters and so on. So it's like really, when you live there, you can easily catch the what is what and so on. Okay, where we are? Here. No. Okay, let's say. There is such like this is my house, yeah, basically, more or less, and yeah, so here we go.
Po sobie solo. No śmiało.
Okay, so this is basically scene that I remember from childhood. Our local specialty and one of most tasty things on earth is smoked eel. And I remember father was like bringing this like huge plastic bag full of eels, and they were like very slimy, and there was mass of them, of this like snaky fishes, and they were still alive. And not sure why, but to conserve the fish and to stop them from being rotten very quick, you just pour salt on them, because salt is conserving the meat and so on, but they are still alive, and to get salt all over your body when you're a fish, it's probably a torture. So, but it's just food, and like what you will need to kill each fish beforehand or what, and like it's so this movie is about like much about nature, and it's like I always say, it's about the cruelty and beauty of nature, that nature is cruel and beautiful at the same time. So you have very good dinner with your family with salmon, and then this salmon, maybe this fish was a mother or she had their own plants or something, and so it's about animals eating each other. And
Розкажи, будь ласка, про
Would you please tell about the style? How was your work? Were you working? It seems to be 3D, but the characters are drawn in 2D. Did you combine those two techniques? How did you happen?
So it's actually my first movie that I felt it looks good, and before I perceive myself as 3D animator mainly. So I was doing such very wannabe Pixar, shiny 3D stuff that weren't so perfect. So they didn't look like Pixar, and they didn't look stylish like some artistic movies. So they were like stuck in between of aesthetics. And how did I come with this aesthetics? Like shortly, I wanted my movies to look good because they were just ugly before. I thought the story is the most important and the visuals are secondary, and if story is good then the visuals are whatever. But then I discovered that's not true, and this movie, it was actually a lot of rotoscopy, and I could say this movie was made twice. Like, first it was all 3D modeled and rigged and animated, like not perfectly, but more or less. Like it was like very, very detailed animatic. And then 3D animatic with some inserts of, as I said, some live action recordings, like my father cutting the fish, or some seagulls in the port. So then we just spent a lot of time and work to just rotoscope over it in Toon Boom, and I decided to make it such black and white, high contrast aesthetics, because I looked at the comic books that I like, and they were many times such like underground comics, like black and white, like Daniel Cloves or Thomas Ott, or who else, like Charles Burns, and this like very, very graphic, sharp aesthetics. And also I also wanted it to be smudged, like to look a little bit of vintage. So as you see, the blacks are never fully black. They're a little bit like violetish, and all the lines are a little bit blurred. So there is much about composite, just tiny bit of compositing in After Effects. But if you will see the like actual raw footage from Toon Boom, it looks awful. So all what matters is when you have artwork you don't like, you just blur it a little bit, you apply grain and such bluish shade in one corner, and it starts to look nice. So that was the style. What else? Yeah, mostly like underground comics, I think, was the
А як ти працюєш з персонажами?
How do you work with the characters? Because the protagonist here is half fish, right? He has the head of a fish. He's a fish boy. So how did you invent him?
When I was a kid, I liked to watch with my mother some strange form of art called theater of TV. So it was basically like theater plays that were filmed and broadcasted in TV, and they were like theater plays. They had like good script, they had like few characters, and like background, there was no like spectacular shots, there was no police cars crashing or whatever, or it was like very simple like backgrounds or objects, but still stories were very engaging. So I think that's why I like this, to gather couple of characters together in one space and make some like connections and frictions between them. and I like to observe like family dynamics. I mean, I'm single child, but I have cousins that they are very Catholic, so there is 8 of them, so there is like small family ecosystem, and I like to see how people relate to each other. So it's such a teenage movie about growing up. I mean, I didn't think about this story much consciously. It just came from my head, but when I analyze it, I think it's about this strong conflict between fishermen being this like masculine man and like doing hunting as fishes as a job, and so he's kind of a hunter, and his son is this one of those creatures that he hunts, and so again referring to this hierarchy of being, you know, it's about that. So this being a fish boy is kind of like this like Untermensch concept, like somebody who is like you know, during Nazism, for example, like mentally ill people, they were like even they were Germans, they were like there was some actions at the beginning of the war that they were killed, or just you know, and when everyone goes to primary school and observes how kids are cruel to each other, like because they always like bully the weakest and so on, and like so, but female characters, they have their own also like hierarchies, sometimes like based on look. So it's like, I mean, or this movie is much about like body, and when you are a teenager, the body is very important and very difficult thing for you. So it's about look, it's about strength, it's about how you are perceived by others. So I made him a fish boy. Yeah, maybe your reference was also like I have some skin disease, and I leave a lot of like dead skin around like me on laptop and so on. And sometimes there is much of it, and when my father is doing, you know, this, he takes off the scales from the fish. It looks similar that, you know, that you peel the skin of the creature, and I thought like, oh, when I'm peeling myself, I'm doing the same. So this is this kind of like turning skin disease into scales.
Would you please tell, I know that you had a mentor, a pedagogue in Lodz, in cinema school, that was Mariusz Wiercinski. That's the director who did which we watched, the full-length film, Kill It and Leave This City. This is a very cool auteur-director, so it's interesting how he was as a teacher. What's his system of pedagogy? Which is his impact onto your film? Maybe some of his ideas. How did you study at his? Would you please tell?
It's a very difficult question because I mean, first of all, I want to say like I think he's very, very good artist, and I like his newest movie. I think it's great. I like his works, and that I got. I learned much from Mariusz at the time, and also after school when I'm years are passing and I'm continuing filmmaking after years. Sometimes I understand what he was meaning at the classes that I didn't get it at the moment. I was like saying like, nah, it's bullshit, like it's or it's not for me, or and so I learned from him a lot, I feel, and he was the first supporter of Zigenert idea. About how much influence they like every great artist, he's like very stubborn. He has very strong character. So, and I'm quite stubborn too. So we got into clashes, and how much of his influence I feel Zigenert is very my movie. I mean. That I made it. Mariusz claimed that without him it wouldn't be so good, and it was a little bit like a matter of very difficult discussions. Yeah. So what's his method? Like I think he don't have method. I think he just he has very personal approach to each student and makes very close bonds with them, and just you just talk with him, and what's his approach? I don't know. Like it's nothing rigid. It's nothing specific. It's just being with him and and just talk. I think the biggest how to say, the biggest pressure he was making to make movies about that will be like unique and personal and author and like important for you, and it will be not mild or just entertaining. So or when he saw that our drawings were similar to style of another animator or artist that we liked, that we tried to copy a little, he was like instantly getting against it, and was encouraging us to find our own voice. And mainly it was just talks about everything. Yeah. Spending time with him.
Ну, це його фільм повнометражний.
This film of his, this full-length film, is an autobiographic film, and your film is autobiographic film. Did he offer you to create a biopic of your own in your creativity, or did you decide to make about you on your own?
Actually, he much didn't like the idea that it's kind of strongly autobiographical, like in my case. Like at the time he claimed I should be more distant to my topic, that I'm getting too anxious or nervous about some scenes because it's so personal for me, so it can't be cut out from the movie. But then he's like, look, the story will flow better without the scene, and I am like, no, this scene is super important, it must be here. It makes no sense, like structure-wise or whatever, but it must be here because it's so important for me personally. So it was quite funny to hear him after years that he made this like super huge, very personal movie, and he even he likes all the time to tell these stories, how like each detail is so personal and so specific for him, like, oh, we had such a Christmas tree, or this is this and that football player that I admired as a kid, and so on and so on. So like it's made of all those like personal details that are most important for him, and for audience I think it's secondary, and it's just mosaic of memories, and I think that's cool. And but he didn't put it as official advice for making a story that it should be autobiographical. I think he was even like discouraging us from doing it.
Розкажи, з яким
Could you please tell us who was the sound designer, sound director you created this cartoon? How did you record the voice? Is it your voice, your father's voice that we hear in the film? Who actually gave their voices to the characters?
Voices. the main character, the fish boy, is my friend. He's great animator too, like Piotr Juannok, and I just like his voice because he has like some difficulty with speaking as me, and I didn't want my voice because it would be too much. Father is some quite known Polish actor with good voice, and who else? Some young actors as this girl and this motorbike boy, and there's also another animator as this like more round sister of this super skinny girl, and her name is Natalia Brożyńska, and she made such puppet movie Shivering Trunks, I think. That was big hit in internet. And voices, like in generally I'm not good at writing dialogues, and at the last stage of making movie I cut out 90% of them, so dialogues, like it's a problem. Like I have actually big problem with dialogues. I just don't want my characters to be mute. I want them to speak, to communicate. I want the audience to know they have voice, but I think my dialogues are just very like plain and just like simple, and I was considering recording dialogues in Esperanto, so there will be just sounds in language that nobody understands, so it will be more like sounds but not meanings. But I didn't do that yet.
But who is the sound director?
I forgot. I work with one sound designer all the time. His name is Michał Wojcik, and he's much awarded, very professional sound designer of big Polish movies, like big productions, and he works for States, for some blockbusters and so on, but for artistic cinema also. And I actually, he has a very specific approach to sound. For example, for Zigenort, he really came with his family for almost for a couple of days. They stayed at our house, and he could download the sea waves from some bank, but no, he went with microphones to this particular lagoon, and he recorded like those sea waves, and he recorded like this car and so on and so on. So like he created a whole like bank of sounds from this village for this movie. I love to work with him. It's one of my favorite parts of the production, and he's really great. I don't know in details what he's doing. He has some like 200 tracks in I think he works in Logic in Pro Tools. Yeah. So for example, it's advice for filmmakers, like don't shift don't re-edit your movie forever till the end, because I changed some cuts in the shots, and I told Michał, it's only 1 second shorter. What's like it's small change. It's only 1 second, and then he showed me his project in Pro Tools, and he said like, no, for this 1 second change, I need to move 200 tracks. That it has 200 layers of sounds, and with some like automatization and curves and so on and so on. So it's like, so first fix the edit and don't touch it, because for such sound designer as Michał, it's really like hell too.
Ну, он еще и він
Well, he's also a musician, right? He makes music. Did he write music for this film? Who wrote the music?
I always use my animations as an opportunity to ask some musicians that I like for music, and for Zigenort it was two musicians. It was Stuart Dahlquist. He's from Seattle, and he was playing on organs in such like drone doom metal bands, Sun O or just Sun, those guys in black robes. So I really wanted to work with him, and he actually has in his basement, like, I know it sounds like fake, but he says he has some organs saved from some like burned church, and he plays organ music in his basement, and so that's one part. And another part is that actually Stuart got like some creative block at some point, like terrible, and we were about to finish a movie and we still didn't have a soundtrack. So as an emergency, I went to a friend of my friend called Paweł Cieślak, and he's professional like sound designer and composer and so on, and he has very like such dirty, dissonant aesthetic. So we sat in one evening, we did fast soundtrack, and then the same night Stuart, this guy from Seattle, he got some creative burst, and he actually sent great music, and I had two great soundtracks that I couldn't decide which to use, so I decided to mix them both, for Zigenort.
дуже цікаво, дякую.
That's very interesting. Great that you have told us that. What happened next? I know that this film got lots of awards in student competitions, like in Zagreb, it got an award, and in several other places. How did you get to Tokyo for this residence, and how did you start making your following film, which is called Black?
The residency in Japan was called JAPIC. It's discontinued. It's like now it's more wide, dealing with general arts of any kind. And I heard about this residency from my Polish friend Ewa Borysewicz, and she was there. And she said it was great, and he should apply. And I applied, and they chose 3 animators, and it was like me, Swiss animator Michal Frey, known from Plug and Play, and Israeli animator Ofra Kobliner. So we spent 3 months in Tokyo, and it was extremely great. And I think we didn't work much. Just the place. Just Japan is too interesting country to stay in the room and draw. So we just finished our movies after the residency, and during residency we got inspiration, let's say. So I don't have it files, like such science fiction YouTube channel called Dust, and they are doing science fiction movies. They bought this movie later, so it's on YouTube. You can watch it. Okay, like with this, I made this movie after this residency, and then I sent it, and it traveled in Japan. It got accepted by Japanese people and so on. And everything was fine until it was like published on internet, and it's actually my reminder that you should be careful about many things, and you should be conscious about what's going on in society and media and so on, because I got serious and making me nervous accusations of racism, because, and you'll see soon like why, and I will tell you a story later, but first I will show you. It's a short story based on a fragment of Philip K. Dick. Sorry, some slow internet.
Цей фільм абсолютно 3D.
This film is absolutely 3D, yes?
3D and cell shading. Oh, it's somehow slow. Okay, maybe it will start in the background at some point. Do I need to connect with? I need to connect.
Ну нічого, ми можемо продовжити.
That's okay. We can still continue our conversation.
In the background, so it will be kind of screensaver.
Як
I know that the dialogues, the characters here speak Japanese. Why do they speak Japanese, and how did you come to this decision?
I mean, partially, you know, it was based on like 2 pages from one book by Philip K. Dick called Dr. Bloodgeld, and it's a it's a modified story about the pair of astronauts that are trapped because of nuclear war that is going on under them, and there is nobody that can pull them down, and from some reason this escaping capsule is broken or something. So why they speak Japanese and why they look somehow Japanese? Yeah, because it was about to be done in Japan, and I wanted some reference, and I like the faces of people there. I made many pictures in metro and Japanese languages, because I love the sound of Japanese, and the visual style was a little bit inspired by not even by anime, but more like manga, because I prefer mangas than anime. I think there are very bad colors many times in anime. They are not hitting each other, and in manga there is this natural elegance of black and white print. So, and I was always amazed how they so precisely write and draw all technical things, you know, like some robots, weapons, vehicles, and so on. So I was this visual style. It's kind of like tribute to this, like some science fiction mangas, and but there is this reference because this movie is about nuclear war, and actually Japan so far is the only nation against which there was like nuclear bombs used. And I visited Hiroshima and this museum and memorial and so on, and for example I took this motif of the guy when he has mental breakdown, he starts to make this like infinite amount of paper cranes, and this is actually what school children in Hiroshima do. Like this, making a paper crane is kind of symbol of praying for peace. So for example, this Hiroshima memorial is all covered with this like paper cranes. It's full of that. I was also in like some museum of a Japanese space agency, but it wasn't too big and too flashy. It was nice, but hard to say that I got some direct inspiration from there. It was like mostly I was like studying, reading a lot about just life on international space station and how everyday life looks there, and it was very very interesting. So actually when I was on Sundance Festival with this movie, in the bus I met a guy who said, I love this movie, and it was so accurately researched, and he said he worked for NASA and he was actually, like, designing some parts of equipment for astronauts and so on, and he gave me these good words that it's well researched. Yeah, so I spend a lot of time on that. And this like racist mess. Like I have. It's my like personal, I don't know, attraction that I like very much when people, or especially girls, when they have like big teeth like sticking out, and they're like very nice and chunky, and like so. I wanted those characters to be not perfect, so guy has some monobrow, and this girl has some sticking out teeth. That for me it was just like personal feature of this character, and then it got uploaded to internet, and I got many comments that it's racist as hell, and then somebody wrote and pointed me out, and I realized that it's this showing Asian people with this like big sticking out teeth. It's exactly how they were depicting during like American World War II propaganda posters. This like bad, ugly stereotype of Japanese people. So I had zero consciousness of that when I was making this movie, and because of some like spontaneous character design decision, I got such. I was very nervous about it. But what's most funny, like in Japan, like maybe because they are so polite and they will never tell you, or just nobody complained about it. So I don't know.
Тобто цей фільм зроблено з абсолютно...
So you want to say that this film was made for zero budget? You did all that yourself, except the sound. It was your friend who made the sound.
Yes, it was, I can say, no budget movie, because of course input of residency in Tokyo was to pay our accommodation and food and stuff, which is big input, but there was no like salary for making it, or there was no budget to hire some 3D modeler. So it's like all the visual stuff is done by me, and script and editing and everything, and the sound, it's again this Michał Wojcik that I work all the time with, and he offered. I said I have no budget, and he said, like, from some weird reason he likes to work with me, and he says, like, I will do it for you if like some big discount. Yeah.
Я знаю, що це...
I know that this film got several awards for the soundtrack, right?
Remember that. I think it got awards somewhere for sound design, but for soundtrack,
sound design, yeah.
Sound design, yeah. Actually, I'm getting on festivals questions from other directors, like who was making the sound. Like, I want contact with this guy, so it's like very, very appreciated and very something.
А скільки в тебе взагалі?
But how much of time did you spend for making of this film?
This particular one, this Black, it was like 1 year, I would say, but it wasn't it had some like times of when it was going very slow, so it wasn't this like 1 year of total efficiency. And I don't know what you think about the visuals, but this movie was doing less good on festivals, for example, because I think it looks more stiff, more rigid, and it's just like you see instantly. It's just filtered, 3D. It's not this hand-drawn thing. I mean, for me it fits because this like coldness of space and coldness of this technical equipment, it fits this like very sterile and emotionless graphics, but somehow it's not very catchy, it's not very pleasant.
Я вірно зрозумів, що
Did I understand correctly that you didn't write the dialogues? You just took the previously created dialogues by Philip Dick in the novel? Or did you create the dialogues yourself?
The dialogues by myself. I mean, this Philip K. Dick was just really like the spark, just really loose inspiration for this story, and all of that is like kind of like refurnished or expanded from this seed. And dialogues I wrote, and then I unfortunately don't speak Japanese, and then I asked my friend to just he asked also for free some Japanese theater actors, and then they were we were recording at flat of my friend when we were putting like tatami, this Japanese mats, as a sound isolation and so on. So like I believe it's translated well to Japanese, but I can't judge it.
розкажи, що було далі.
Would you please tell what happened then, and how did you achieve your next movie, which was Acid Rain, right? How did you begin to work on that? What was your first idea? And again, as far as I can see, it's an autobiographic one, because yesterday I was at your concert, and it looked like I was in Acid Rain itself. So you create the music yourself. Yesterday you were playing your own music, right? Or was it a DJ set previously recorded?
No, it's like my relationship with rave culture and rave music is very strong and long and personal. So yeah, I feel I'm talking too long and too slow. So I will try to keep it short. How I got the idea? Okay. I looked back and I thought like, oh, all my movies are black and white and depressive. Like now I will make something very, very colorful, fast and loud and like entertaining, and it will bring me joy like during the process. And I was thinking like, okay, I was thinking what I like what gives me something positive in life, like. And I thought it's electronic music and going to parties and meeting people, or even not even meeting them, just seeing them. And so I decided to make a movie about rave culture, or just based on rave culture more or less. And again, some characters are composed of some of my friends, like glued together to characters, and some parties are real. I mean they refer to some real events. So for example, I'm getting messages on Facebook like somebody recognized such like this concrete arc that the characters are climbing at some point. So it was like, so somebody messaged me, oh, is this like Center Tech 2009 in this and that village? And I said, yes. How do you know? Oh, because I recognize this concrete dome. Yeah, so it was like big party at some like post-Soviet like military base, and it was, you know, and so people recognize this particular party, and So many characters are based on real people, and what I like all this iconography and this UV colors. Like maybe I wanted to prove to the world that I love colors, you know, because all my movies are black and white, and actually in my room it's super colorful. Like I have like a lot of stuff, and there is all the colors, and it's not black and white and minimalistic and idea. Yeah, so it's again like small set of characters in small space of camper, and it's about relationships, like about. I think I was many times in such like strange relationship that was never. That was something very strong, but it was never, I don't know, like man-women's situation, and it was creating a lot of like tensions, and it's maybe movie about friend zone and age difference and how long you can be, how old you can be going to parties. Maybe at some point you should, you know, get a normal job and be adult, and you know just leave the parties to young people, you know. And what else were the topics?
На цьому фільмі ти працював з
And you were working with real actors in this film. This is the motion capture, right?
There is much use of motion capture, like yeah, almost all the movements are motion capture. First it was done with like some Kickstarter beta tested system called Perception Neuron that was creating a lot of bugs, and when character they walk very weirdly, or their limbs are passing the body or something, it's just errors, and like nobody wanted to clean it, and it was like huge amount of errors, and at some point we just like what to do with that, and we just decided it actually looks cool, and let's just leave it. And many times after screening people are coming and like, oh, how you like great idea of using this like broken motion capture with this like glitches in the skeleton and so on. And I say it's not intentional, but it's, you know, it's some way to turn mistakes and errors into aesthetics, to go around technical limitations. The most fun part was recording the dances for this rave scene, and my flatmate at the time was a choreographer, and we liked to go to parties together, so we just did some like kind of casting, like, oh, this guy, he dances nice, or look at this girl, and so on. And so she organized some team of dancers, and they sweated for 2 hours, and there was like live DJ set played in motion capture studio, so they were actually like dancing to the music in the studio for 2 hours, and they got all wet, and but it was a lot of fun.
Could you say about, розкажи, будь ласка.
Would you please tell about the style? Is it rotoscope on 3D or just 3D? How was it working?
It's no, it's not rotoscoped. It's filter using such field called Ceba's Final Tune, and in my opinion, it's best cartoon shader for 3D. I like it a lot, and yeah, it's filter. It's cell shaded 3D, and style. The inspiration is like many times I say there is such Russian folktale illustrator Ivan Bilibin. I liked his shapes and his characters and his colors, depictions of forest and characters. There was a little bit of inspiration from such Japanese illustrator Seiichi Hayashi, but he's not very popular abroad, so hard to say. I mean, this white skin can be from this Japanese ukiyo-e, maybe taken, and it's again some underground comics and this crooked, rough style.
Розкажи трошки.
Would you please tell a bit about the music which is playing there? What's the music? How did you select it? What are the bands?
So before you ask me if I did music for Acid Rain, no, I didn't, and I don't feel myself like as a musician. I do it as a hobby so far. I perceive it like that, and it's really trashy music. And for this movie, I wanted to have like proper, well-made rave tracks, and there was actually five producers, like one from Australia, one from the old like veteran of the scene from UK, the two guys from Poland. The one guy is pioneer of rave scene in Poland at all, and actually I interviewed him, and some of the stories from his early years and these early years of this music in Poland was inspiration for this movie, and he's such walking I don't know, archive of this scene, which was very small, but still they were the only ones.
Тобто музика.
So the music was not created specially for the movie, it was already created before, and you just purchased the rights to use those tracks, right?
Yeah, in my dreams I wanted them to be original tracks composed for the movie, but it appears that those guys are so like, they are not like professional musicians that you pay them, they just sit and they compose, they just do tracks when they feel, and they just say like I can't make something just like that for as a commissioned work. Yeah, it's unpleasant fragments, and yeah, so it's basically like kind of various artists compilation of such retro acid rave style.
Я так розумію, що
As far as I understand, we're almost out of time. Would you please tell about your new project you're working now at, and maybe you could show some of the excerpts?
The last thing I will say, like right now I work on short movie called Winter, and it's kind of, I nickname it, it's like Zigenort 2 in winter, so it's again some kind of like dark version of my village, but about all the stuff in winter. So there is such urban legend that, you know, on Stettin Lagoon we have such island, we call it Cat Island, and instead of killing cats, the fishermen supposed to drop those cats on this island, and they supposed to live there wild. So the plot is like that during winter the lagoon freezes, which I remember from childhood, and the cats are coming back from island to the village, and they are very like very angry, let's say, and it happens during Christmas Eve. And I don't know if you have it in Ukraine, but there is such belief that during Christmas Eve at midnight animals talk with human voices, and you expect them to say something nice, but in my movie they are very pissed off at people. Like it's again about cruelty against animals and cruelty of people to each other. So it's like dealing with some like difficult issues within small village community. And I will show you something what I have so far. I don't have much. Where do I have it? And it will be made in. It will be my first drawn animation, like not rotoscoped, but like 2D from scratch, which is like very difficult for me. But fortunately, I have some very good animators from studio in Łódź called Yellow Tapir. It's small but very. So it's like very analog and retro, and kind of I want to turn to like book illustrations or something like that. And so I always hated like paper textures or watercolor. I hated such use of such techniques in animated movies. I thought this shot will be remade. Actually, it's just test that I didn't like. What else we have here? Yes, it will be more or less like that. It will have some like textures and like fake Photoshop pastel and stuff. So the things that I was disgusted by it a few years ago, but somehow I started to draw much more on paper. Oh yeah, I'm getting back to physical media from this like computer stuff. Oh, what do we have?
В цьому фільмі вже не буде 3D.
So this film won't have any 3D points, so there will be some left.
Tiny bit, but in general, it's like 90% will be.
And black and white.
Not totally black and white, more like monochrome. Yeah, like with such hinter colors.
Давайте ще пару.
So let us have a couple of questions from the audience, okay? Because we've got some time left. Well, in fact, we're out of time, but still. There are any questions?
Yes, the mic, please.
Will be grilled.
Yeah, so I have a question. In your first film, it's happening in this village, which is kind of like Polish, but also German village. I suppose that the language there is quite unique, especially because it's a small village. So I know from Croatia, when you go to small villages, they have their own kind of language and the way they speak. So my question is, you kept the original language, but you have the subtitles. How satisfied were you with the translation to English, and did you dub it also to French or English or any other language? So it's about how to keep the nature and the spirit of the original language when translated to English, French, or other speaking other languages. Yeah.
I think it's a good question, but it wasn't so particularly the case of Tsiganord, because it's not specific in what country it happens. Is it Poland, or is it like Germany before war or whatever? And there is no specific language in my village. It's just Polish, so there is no any like specific like dialect. Like more in Silesia, in such mining region of Poland, we have this like Silesian language that is like weird mix of Polish and German, and actually normal person can get anything. But that's not the case of my village, and expressions and translations. As I said, like I'm not a good writer of dialogue, so my dialogues are not very sophisticated. They are very like straightforward. So what to say, like no specific language. So the only thing was this Japanese movie that it's translated, but I can't judge how well it's translated. I wrote the dialogues in English, but somehow I heard from Japanese friends that it's quite badly, like it's very stiff Japanese language in this translation, because Japanese is very, very nuanced, so I think it can be done very badly or very great.
Thank you.
Чи є ще запитання?
Are there any more questions? That's it? No more questions? Okay, well then, Tomek, thanks. Great. It was very interesting. Thank you.
Yes.